Hey Multiamory fans, I hope you're taking care of yourselves. I just wanted to let you know that during this time when a lot of people are feeling isolated or lonely, that we've started doing some regular group video chats that are open to everybody. If you want information about the next one, you can go to multiamory.com/hangout and get details about that, or if you go to that address during one of the hangouts, it will redirect you to where you can actually join it. They've been a lot of fun so far, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.
You're listening to a Pleasure Podcast, a podcast network revolutionizing the conversation around sex and relationships. For more, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
We're super excited to announce that Multiamory will be recording a live show at this year's Poly Dallas Millennium in Dallas, Texas.
And Poly Dallas Millennium is not just a conference. It was created by Ruby Bowie Johnson to be a sex-positive space for anyone who is wanting more education and resources regarding non-monogamy. This event centers people of color and people who are trans, queer, and non-binary, but that doesn't mean that anybody is excluded. Everybody is welcome to attend.
And this is PDM's 5th year running, so come celebrate with us. PDM runs from July 24th to the 26th, and early registration ends March 31st. So get your tickets now at polydallasmillennium.com.
And basically, what Facebook's done is they're moralizing. They've said that their community sentiment is such that this isn't something that they want to take ads for. And this is incredible when you look at Zuckerberg out in Silicon Valley talking about the importance of clarity and free speech, or running Super Bowl ads here in the U.S. talking about how important Facebook groups are.
Welcome to the Multiamory Podcast. I'm Jace.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Dedeker.
We believe in looking to the future of relationships, not maintaining the status quo of the past.
So whether you're monogamous, polyamorous, swinging, casually dating, or if you just do relationships differently, we see you, and we're here for you.
On this episode of the Multiamory Podcast, we're speaking with Amanda Wilson and David Epstein, the co-founders of the sex-positive and non-monogamy-friendly dating app #Open. So, as our listeners know, online dating is hard. It's a hard world. It's something that we talk about occasionally on this show. And creating an app for online dating, I would say, is even harder. And so today we're excited to talk to both Amanda and David about some of the challenges in creating an app like this, what they're doing to try to make online dating better, as well as some of the challenges that have come up with that, and also some kind of real world talk about the world of online dating and what's going on there. So Amanda and David, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here as well.
Yeah, so I want to start out just with the elevator pitch for what #Open is. And I kind of want to hear, what I'm curious about is what's the pitch that you use when you're describing the app to people who are kind of already, let's say, bought in, already part of a non-traditional relationship or community or sexuality or identity or something like that, versus how do you pitch or describe the app to someone who is totally new to any of this and had no idea non-monogamy was even a thing?
That's a great question. For the people that are already bought in, I think the elevator pitch is really letting them know that the tools have been built for them. Setting your boundaries and talking about your interests and your preferences, that's so important. And those people that have bought in, they've also bought into the communication aspect side of relationships, right? And that can be hard. I know words are not always my best friend. So we built in tools inside of the app to make having those communications as easy as possible. We have a section right there to where you can state what your hard limits are. And again, words aren't your friend. Being able to state that right there and, not ever have to really have, a conversation further is useful for a lot of people. So I think that is the pitch for those that are bought in.
Yeah, I think that what we've tried to do, certainly, really for folks who do understand sort of consensual non-monogamy and the framework around and the ethics around those choices, or people who maybe are curious about and looking to explore it. We've tried to create a process where coming into the app and coming into the app community gets, as Amanda said, people to think about their preferences, think about what their boundaries are, and start to understand that communicating them is a must, right? So everybody who comes through the app process agrees to really like a code of conduct within the community. And that's really all based around, negotiation, inclusion, consent, and making sure that your experiences are something that that you're doing with really an open eye and open to communicating. And these are things that are good in any relationship, but especially good in a non-monogamous relationship.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I'm curious to know a little bit more about like the origin story of kind of how this whole journey started for both of you.
Well, we can start with me. I moved to the Northeast about 6 years ago and met David 5 years ago, and had a couple of years of dating, we'll call it platform experiences, right? Because I did them all.
That's the best like euphemism I've heard for like going onto the online dating app grind ever. Just I've had multiple platform experiences.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember when eHarmony was, a bubble sheet that you used to fill out and actually mail back in, and then they would mail you your 10 preferences or your 10, matches for that month. Yes, so I've been around a while.
Did they give you like little cards with faces of the people, and they're like, hello?
Like baseball cards?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So, I had all of this experience, and as David said, we're kind of early adopters, so we would get in on those, Tinder and Field and stuff in the very beginning, and would see how people would come into the community, and then how it would change with people trying to, do different workarounds with different things, because all these platforms are really trying to push you into one of two binary boxes, and if that doesn't fit you, because there's so many people that doesn't fit for, having options to meet that.
Amanda had come, as she said, from the South, a single mother who had built a career in Republican politics, and came to the Harvard Extension School basically to study like democratization. And, in getting there, I know that you felt like it was like just a rapid fire learning a new culture and new ways of people interacting. And I remember, we met, was it a year into that experience for you?
It was.
We started to communicate. We met on an app that was definitely catering to people that were outside of the sort of more norm, and started communicating very clearly with each other and very honestly with each other, and that was really refreshing for both of us. And that's really, it was that process that kind of gave birth to the app, I think, in many ways.
So were some of your initial messages to each other like, hey, you're cute, this app sucks, let's make a better one? And here we are 5 years later?
Yeah, were you non-monogamous at this point, or are you, or interested in it?
I would say that I came from a very traditional background, and monogamy was always just kind of the style that I was in, because I didn't know anything else, and
it's like the default option.
Yes, it's the default option. But then as I started, really meeting people outside of where I came from, and just talking to them, just realizing that there are other ways to do this, and better ways. Monogamy, I think, is great for anybody that consciously chooses it, but that's the difference.
I mean, really what had happened, you had created a profile in this app with another person that you hadn't met, but you had done that kind of to create some.
Well, the differences for females inside of these apps and males are quite different, right? And so for me, saying no is it's not something that I like to do, and so constantly having to say no to so many people was just becoming challenging, and so I did create a fictitious partner in order to.
It was a virtual partnership.
Virtual,
they weren't fictitious, but it created a virtual partnership and was looking to meet other individuals to explore, but you're really a sole agent, as everybody is.
Yes, we're all individuals coming into these partnerships.
But the answer to the question, that app, it exists today, and it is popular in the space. We felt for a lot of reasons that we wanted to do things a bit differently. It's definitely a tremendous amount of work, and we've had a lot of fun and have built something really incredible, but it's hard.
And just because I'm curious, this app you're talking about, is this like, are you talking about FetLife or Tinder, or what is this app?
Well, so we met on what is now known as Field. It was known as Thrinder back then, but has been renamed.
Right. And so Amanda, you were like a single female profile on Thrinder, and yeah, okay, I see. So just getting like a lot of messages and things like that. And having to say, okay, that makes sense. Now I have more context. I'm like, okay, yeah,
yes.
I get you.
Hence the need for a virtual partnership.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
That makes sense.
So you alluded to this a little bit, but I'm interested in what your research process was behind building the app, because there have been, like, I guess between 2009 and 2014, OkCupid published a big study kind of done on their demographic preferences of some of their the people who are using their app, and it talked about race and attraction and also demographics and attraction and various things. And they did say after their initial findings that they made major changes to improve their product for everyone who was using it. So I'm just curious, did that influence the way in which you made your app? What other things potentially influenced the findings that you had and your app in general?
I mean, hugely, right? I mean, you talk about dataclysms all the time.
Yes.
Are you referring to the dataclysms work and study?
Hold on 1 second. Dataclysms is probably the best word. Probably
That's
like the second best
like
word that I've heard in this
cataclysm
interview. Second to what? Multiple platform experience. Now it's dataclysms. You got to explain that.
Yeah, so dataclysms, OkCupid was started by 4 mathematicians, and one of them wrote a book just on all of the data that they have collected and trends that they have seen throughout OkCupid over the years. So, and it's absolutely fascinating. I recommend it for anybody.
And
Was
really
that
scary.
the name of the book?
Yeah.
Yes,
Dataclysms. Okay, there it is. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And I think that is the initial research that OkCupid published that you're referring to.
Right.
So, based on their observations of human behavior through their dating platform, and really through the first year of our relationship, you're reading that material and sort of looking at. At the time, I remember you were studying like cybersecurity and this fictitious hack that the Soviets might do on the Ukrainians, and talking about Facebook, and like lo and behold, this is exactly what was happening, right? Mm-hmm. So you take the observations and dataclysms about OkCupid and dating, and now you apply it to Facebook, and you look at the fact that whether it's Field, the app that we met on that uses Facebook for login, or it's Tinder or every other match product, that 99 out of 100 dating platforms out of there are directly meshed with the Facebook data engine, and then look at a book like Dataclysms and imagine.
Right.
And that's really a big part of why we did this.
So
Yes.
What were some of those then design choices that you made based on that for your app to try to make it different from those?
Well, based on Amanda's concerns around the data privacy issues, and in particular concerns around the potential for people to weaponize that data, we knew that we had to write a privacy policy that kept our database sacrosanct. So we don't share with any third parties. We don't use any third-party login or authentication. We don't have any data exchange that we get inbound or outbound, other than checking the telephone number database to assure that we're using a cellular phone number, and that's really for fraud purposes. But we don't, unlike any of our sizable competitors, we don't share anything with Facebook. We don't share anything with Match. We don't share anything with Procter & Gamble.
Wow,
oh, good.
That's very unique and lovely.
Yeah, so
very refreshing.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my next question. That you really intentionally wanted to kind of avoid that crossover and that sharing of data and things like that. So, I do feel that, like, when we're talking about the non-monogamy dating scene specifically, this arguably niche, maybe arguably not niche dating scene, and I think that over the years we've seen a very noticeable shift in how non-monogamy has entered mainstream conversations about dating. There's definitely been a few other attempts at making dating apps or sites or meetups or things like that aimed at non-traditional relationships. We've seen, at least I've personally seen, an explosion of people online identifying as polyamorous or non-monogamous on more mainstream dating apps like Tinder. There's an op-ed in the New York Times about the explosion of couple profiles on Tinder specifically. We've seen things like a couple of years ago, OkCupid, expanding their filtering and profile systems to be more friendly to non-monogamy and a variety of different gender identities. And despite that, there's definitely still a lot of people in the community frustrated by a lack of options, and I think combined with, I think a lot of people also starting to feel fatigued by dating apps. And so I wanted to know from the two of you, like, when you were setting out to make this app, what were the things that you felt were like really, really missing, maybe still missing right now, and that you felt that, #open could offer that was different from everything that was available at the time?
Well, I think, at the very basic level, the biggest difference is, #open was built by users for users. So, it did take the experience that David and I had. It, now incorporates the experience of all of the other women that are on our team. So when you're building it with those things in mind, rather than trying to build it to collect data or to, for some other kind of reason, then you're not really truly allowing people to be as authentic as they really want to be. I mean, people want to be themselves. They want to show themselves. That is a process, for them. But we just really wanted to build a platform that again was for the users and always had their privacy and their security in mind from the very beginning. Rather than it being an afterthought, we put those resources that we could into making sure that we were as secure as we could be from the beginning.
Amanda put forward some challenges as we were trying to design the initial offering, and like the first one was, I don't want people to have to choose labels. Well, okay, we get that, but people also, they like labels, and so how do we mesh this? And so we just made a decision across the boards that in every area where the app might ask a user a question, they had the option not to answer that question. They also had the option to customize that answer. And just, using that as a design approach across the boards has enabled us to realize, close to 10% of our users identifying outside the gender binary. We've got about 54% of our users are currently identifying as male or cis male. About 35% woman or cis female, and the balance is outside that spectrum. And that, I don't know if that would have happened if we didn't give people the flexibility of labels. And we're seeing that in a bunch of places.
Yeah. Do you also apply the same approach to like, you know, how people define their relationship status? Because I know that was also a big thing. You know, when OkCupid made their big shift to suddenly become more non-monogamy friendly, that I know that a lot of people felt that it also kind of fell short because it was kind of the same thing of like, I'm still a little bit trapped by a box of, you know, essentially like the 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 max options of how I can label my relationship.
So we do. We actually have 4 categories of sort of statistics that we publish live on our website each night at midnight, and those are the gender breakdown of the user community and the choices that they're making from the sort of pre-selected options, and then other. We have. Orientation, relationship style, and relationship preference. And again, all of those have the ability to take custom labels. And with time, we'll update those lists, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm curious about how were those lists generated in the first place, and is there a process in place? Because I know that, like you said, with everything, there's some set options, but you can also choose your own. I'm curious, is there any kind of a process in place for a choice kind of entering the main list or perhaps being removed from the main list based on choices or ethical concerns or anything? Choices. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, so the short answer is yes, in that we're continually developing, and we always have the ability to update things. The longer answer is everything is more challenging than we ever would have imagined. Yeah. And so, you know, depending on the sort of, I mean, we can get, you know, almost anything done, but it's a matter of time and money. And, you know, one of the reasons that we don't see a lot of options in this space is it's a challenging space to attract investment, and it's a challenging space to promote that which you have, right? So what we have today has like oodles of room for improvement. But we have to also get what we have today out there into the marketplace, and you know, we agree and believe that there's tremendous demand, but you've got to be able to reach those folks. So there's some chicken and egg, I guess.
Since you brought it up, I am curious about that, and we don't necessarily have to go here, so you know, stop me. But I am curious, like, you know, is this something where have you been seeking investment? Because I imagine that must be just such. That was kind of why I was curious about the elevator pitch, is because I imagine that, like, on the one hand, when I think about like Silicon Valley venture capitalists, I'm like, oh, they're all non-monogamous, which is kind of maybe an assumption. But then on the other hand, also when you're trying to like get investment for a product like this from mainstream, quote unquote, mainstream sources, like there's an inherent challenge in that. What's been your experience with that?
It's been exceptionally difficult to, you know, we being also sex positive and relationship positive, means that, you know, for Facebook, that is just too outside of the box for them, and Facebook really seems to be the leader for, you know, all the other companies. So, because we have been denied by Facebook, which is also Instagram, and Reddit, Snapchat, Twitter.
Wow, and the investment, Reddit? Really?
Goodness. Yeah. Well, Reddit. What Reddit did initially is we submitted an application, and they said that they wouldn't take it on the basis of, you know, they tend to put us in the mail order bride category, or the Ashley Madison, you know, paid cheating sites. That they wouldn't take our promotion. And so we went back and said, well, you know, this is really quite odd. Why are you taking promotions from Field? It's really the same thing. And sadly, because this was not our intent, but literally 15 minutes later, Field was no longer there. Wow. You know, this is it's all related to FOSTA and SESTA, really, is a big part of it.
And we've heard of an ongoing petition happening surrounding this. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, I filed a petition and it has been signed by over 2,000 people currently. But basically calling Facebook out on their censorship and also their hypocrisy.
I mean, basically, what Facebook's done is they're moralizing. They've said that their, community sentiment is such that this isn't something that they want to take ads for. And this is incredible when you look at, Zuckerberg out in Silicon Valley talking about, the importance of, clarity and free speech, or running Super Bowl ads here in the U.S. talking about how important Facebook groups are. One of the things that Amanda points out, in her petition is that there are hundreds of thousands of people on Facebook who explore various forms of consensual non-monogamy. So it's just crap.
Yeah, I wonder where he gets that from, or where whomever gets that idea that, the user doesn't want this, or that that's the consensus from the user. Like, where I have no idea where they're getting that from.
Neither do we.
Yeah, and I mean, just to rope our listeners in, recently you have been getting some news coverage about this, like Business Insider. I know a couple other outlets did a write-up about this, that it really has been this kind of mind-boggling thing that, the response that you've gotten from Facebook being something along the lines of like, well, this is not what the community wants, and also that the community is not ready for any kind of casual dating, which is like just a statement that I can't even wrap my brain around. Like, I just really can't wrap my brain around this idea that the community is not ready for casual dating, first of all.
But Facebook dating's not casual.
Right, yeah, exactly. Combined with the fact that, as you also have pointed out kind of in your campaign around this, that like, more mainstream apps like OkCupid have posted ads that are, sexually suggestive in nature, obviously nothing explicit, but that they have suggested, hey, you might use this app to have sex with somebody, and that's a good thing. And so why not try it out? Combined with, Facebook, of course, also, authenticating like logins for Tinder and stuff like that, which is, last time I checked, Tinder did not have the reputation of being only for like long-term soulmate relationships. So it really is this really, really interesting, really, really fascinating thing that I think, especially for what the two of you are trying to do, which is like a sex positive app that's not just about hookups, that's also open to non-monogamy, polyamory, stuff like that, that the knee-jerk reaction would be so strong in that direction.
Well, and it is interesting, you posed the question earlier about investment, and we have self-funded this. So we've put everything that we have into it and been fortunate that we've been able to borrow, but we don't have traditional corporate backing. And, frankly, would like to avoid that, right? We have a privacy policy that's not attractive to venture capital, right? Venture capital wants to invest in selling, in building a database and selling it. Well, if you read our privacy policy, you'll see that we could never really sell #open in that way. Our interest is in building a set of tools, and we'd like to see others do the same. And we think some are doing this, but building a set of tools that'll serve a community that's underserved, and then being rewarded for doing that. I mean, that's a really good long-term business model, right? 10, 15, 20, 25% of our users might be happy to contribute, a latte a month or a chai a month or whatever their thing is, for a set of tools that are, built with efficacy and transparency. And but if we can't get to them, we can't do that. And that's really that's why the petition. And we were really excited. That article, and frankly some mentions within Facebook, drove over 5,000 new profiles this weekend, which for us is huge. Oh, wow. It's massive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Congrats. So silver lining for sure. Now, I think that approach that you're taking of like, we're not just trying to build a database and then sell it and get VC money and stuff like that. I do think that's the correct approach. It does make me think that I do think there is kind of an irony though, that like once you're able to prove that a community is a market and that you can sell to them, that's sometimes another domino in the chain of acceptance, right? Which is, I mean, awful, it's late stage capitalism at its finest and stuff like that. But that is like, I think kind of the weird struggle and weird irony, and it's definitely brought up some weird feelings for me as I've seen other more mainstream apps or other people trying to launch like a more traditional VC funded kind of dating app for non-monogamy is this idea of like, well, this seems like a cash grab, but then at the same time, in our capitalist society, it is an indicator of like, ooh, this is a legitimate group of people because you can sell to them.
It's a huge opportunity, and we're capitalists.
Exactly.
We just, but we also have a long-term view, and we would love to provide a set of tools and have a team that builds those tools for years and years to come. And it's a community that looks for those kinds of solutions, but definitely the big players. In the year that we've been doing this, we've seen their sort of pivot around LGBTQIA plus, our gender and orientation diversity is not as unique as it was a year ago, and that's great. It's a good thing, and that's because of what's going on in the culture. It's got nothing to do with us.
Right, totally. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the monetization stuff as well as more about the security stuff that I think is really interesting. And then we want to get into kind of talking about some of the ethics and politics of online dating and some of the choices and things like that. But before we get to all of that, we want to take a quick moment to talk to our listeners about ways you can support this show to help it keep going if we're providing something that gives you value. And if not, then feel free to skip ahead and listen to the rest of it.
So our beloved adamandeve.com is this week's sponsor. And we really love them just simply because they have been with us since the beginning of Multiamory. And that's awesome. We love brand relationships. No, I'm kidding. But we just love them. They're awesome. And if you are in a relationship, you might be having sex. And so you might need some sexy things. And because of that, why don't you go to Adam and Eve and grab some sexy things?
I like how you're walking people through the whole logical process of...
Exactly. No, just in case, you know what? I'm going to spell it all out for you. So you might want to get some sexy clothing, some lingerie, get a little sexy candle, sexy toy, and maybe some sexy porn. You can get all of these things, even condoms, at adamandeve.com. So if you were looking for something that maybe is a little expensive, a little out of your price range, you can use our promo code MULTI, M-U-L-T-I, at checkout. You can actually use it as many times as you want. Get a bunch of really expensive things and knock 50% right off of that. You'll also get a free gift and free shipping when you use our promo code. So definitely go and do that. Go to adamandeve.com. Use Multi, and then it'll also give us a nice little kickback, and we will love you even more than we already do, and Adam and Eve for that matter.
Since the beginning of this show, it's been really important to us to make these resources and this information available to as many people as possible. And doing that through a free podcast has been amazing in helping us reach more people to let them know that they are represented, that there are people who understand you and who are working on relationship advice and tools for you, and not just if you fit into this one particular mold that's in the movies and the TV shows. And over the last 5 years, we've been able to grow that reach to so many more people. It's been really amazing. And that's been almost entirely possible just because of people supporting us at patreon.com/multiamory.
Something that's been really beautiful to see is that also in our Patreon community, some of our listeners are able to, for the first time ever, access a supportive community and a support network. We have a lot of listeners who are in remote areas who don't necessarily have access to a supportive community, and our Patreon community has been able to give that to a lot of people, which is really wonderful to see. And so we really appreciate the people who are in our community who choose to support the show, and we want to give back to the people who are going out of their way to help us keep making this show.
So some of the cool things that we offer as a thank you include private Facebook and Discord communities just for our Patreon listeners, having early releases on episodes, getting bonus episodes, and also private video discussion groups. We love getting to give back to our community in that way. So if you do want to join this amazing community of people who help make this show possible, go to patreon.com/multiamory today and become a patron of ours. We'd really appreciate it.
So to go back to this question of money, right? I know that hosting a database and hosting like the infrastructure for an app as well as the marketing it, and all of those things cost money, and they can cost quite a bit of money, and they cost money every month. It's not just like you spend once to make it and then it's done, right? It's something that is an ongoing expense. And so I'm curious about, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, that your eventual kind of monetization model for this would be what? Like a premium features kind of thing, like OkCupid, or that the whole thing would become paid? Because I do think that like the thing that made OkCupid unique in the beginning was the fact that it was free, and that you could use almost all of it for free. And that's still true, right? And I do think that's really interesting when at the time it was competing against Match.com, where you had to pay to do basically anything at all, right? Besides create the profile. If you want to do anything, you had to pay. And same with eHarmony and, all those other kind of big like mainstream apps. And that was kind of what made them different. And so far, #Open feels similar in that it's free. And I'm just curious, like, what are your plans moving forward in terms of cost and things like that?
So scale is ultimately the challenge. We've always believed that the basics have to be free to everybody in order for it to be a viable community. And frankly, we kind of feel like pretty much everything we're doing now is the basics. We obviously want to do them better. And we've got, I think 900 tickets in our system of ongoing bugs, and that number just continues to roll. But so the basics always need to be available for the community, and especially in this community, because we know that a lot of people don't have the kind of resources to be both open about the choices they've made in their life and necessarily able to do that everywhere. What we are a Delaware B. It's not called a B Corp. What's it? A BLLC?
Oh, is it not an LLC? But yeah,
It is,
Delaware's
yeah.
the way to go. 'Cause you don't have to pay taxes.
And especially if you have no revenue. If you have no revenue, you
There you
get
go.
like an extra
Yeah.
double tax credit. But we're what is a equivalent of it's called a B Corp. We have to go through the entire process of certification, but our mission includes reinvesting back into the community that we serve. And that, that's really something that you've taken the lead on.
Yeah, what does that look like?
Exactly. I that was one of the things in your mission statement, and I found that to be very interesting, because that's not the idea of community. I don't think is very large in Field or I guess in OkCupid or any of that, and you really care about giving back to the community in various ways. So I'm very interested in what that looks like to you.
Well, and becoming a B Corp and just really having the ability to remember that like our mission is the most important thing. As David said, we are also capitalist, and we have to have money to make this thing go forward. But being marginalized, and that includes women, right? It is. Already a hurdle, right? Just in your life, and so anything that we can do to potentially put money back into research, right? And as David was saying earlier, as far as like money and big money, people aren't putting money into kink research, or maybe BDSM can cure the common cold. We don't know, because nobody's really out there putting the money in there and researching that specifically, right?
And basically, what the B Corp structure does for us is enables us to create, to your question about revenue models, incentives for more and more people to participate and support in the project. So let's say we approach the community at a point later this year and say, listen, it takes following to support this effort. We're going to keep investing, but we would like those that can to support and give back. If you can participate at this level per month, you will receive this following digital badging. You could receive these additional enhanced features, some right now that are under consideration, would be potentially things like last active or potentially knowing who's already liked your profile. Although, again, we talk about those, there are pluses and minuses, but a set of enhanced features at a very modest monthly recurring rate. And when we reach 10% of our user community doing that, we want to make the following donation to the Woodhull Institute, as an example, to really just use things that will drive growth back within the community and resonate for the community.
That's great.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The question is, when can we do that? And our feeling has been that we need to grow a bit more to do that, that the interactivity needs to increase a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, at least for me, in terms of looking at the dating apps out there, and that of everything I've seen so far that's actually got off the ground, that Open is the first one, or hashtag Open is the one that seems like the first one that has options besides just being overly sexualized or just about couples looking for women to have sex with, which, Field kind of fell into that trap. And I know that I know people who have met partners and have had good relationships through Thrinder or Field, and you two are an example of that. However, I know that most people's experience with it is like, oh, I liked the idea, but all it is couples looking to hook up with someone. And like when openminded.com did their bid for trying to make an app that was very much like, we're going to, sell your information and also put it on, Trump lovers who date, and also on, John McCain lovers who date. Like, we're just going to sell it to every dating niche site out there.
Oh my God, Chase.
No, I'm serious. This is a real thing. There's this whole network of dating sites for certain niches where all the data is shared between them.
It's all shared. Is John McCain?
I don't know if John McCain lovers is
okay.
The now defunct John McCain for lovers.
I'm going to make that URL of just johnmccainiSforlovers.com.
Oh, I see. John McCain is for lovers. That's good.
Rest in peace, John McCain. He was my Arizona. Represent Arizona. Okay.
Sorry, Jace. Please continue.
Anyway, what I'm trying to get at is I appreciate what you're doing, and I think that hashtag Open is sort of the closest toward that I've seen. And I agree that having a user base is always the problem with any startup dating app, that you've just got to have the users so that it's useful to people, so there's people to meet. I do know, however, that I've found in looking through it, it does seem like there is kind of also a lot of this looking for hookup thing. And as someone who is maybe less, at least I feel less than average, motivated by sex compared to some people, or motivated by kink, I have experienced a little bit of frustration being okay, is there any way for me to make this search better for people who are, I don't know, looking for something else besides hookups? I think there's value to both. And or
who are even asexual, or it's something along those lines.
Yeah.
Well, so, again, we feel like we built the tools to allow our users to really state what their end game is, state what you're looking for. That should be allowed, right? If you are just looking for somebody to hook up with this weekend, and that's the only reason when you're on a dating app, you should be able to say that, because there's probably somebody else who just wants to hook up for this weekend and never talk to you again too, right? David and I have always said that, if we could just get the exhibitionists up with the voyeurs, then, everybody is happy. And this is part of what hashtag Open, I think, will really do. And if it really works well, it's going to make all of the other dating platforms work even better too, right? Because by allowing our users to state what it is that they're looking for, other people are going to find them, and they're going to do that based upon what their interests are or what kind of experience it is that they want to have. If they are swingers and they just want to have, one night, they should be able to say that, and there will be somebody else that will meet that. So, taking some of the importance off of the labels. And again, I know people, if you like them, you like them. If you don't, you don't. But taking some of the importance off of that and really bringing it back down to what type of person is it do you want to meet? What type of relationship do you want to have? I call it a relationship choice approach. But if you know going into this that you want to have a XYZ relationship and you put that out there, well, then you're only looking for other people that want to have an XYZ relationship too, right? So it allows you to find each other, hopefully, in a more authentic way, because dating is also changing, right? We're no longer in a courting system, right? Dating is changing, and dating is different for everybody, and we should be able to just say what that is for us, and then find someone.
One of the things that we notice as we look at those daily statistics is how quickly various things will change. As an example, over the last few days, the percentage of people within the database that identified as polyamorous went from 21 to 26%. That's huge, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that particular profile surge came largely from the poly community, and you would see more profiles that are going to reflect those values. But at the same time, there is a lot of space and a lot of overlap with the kink community, or thankfully at this point with the general population.
Okay, so something I'm curious about. So say that our listeners are listening to this episode right now, and they're going, this is interesting, I'm going to try it out. If they're like me, it works pretty different from other dating apps, and there's a little bit of a learning curve. And I'm wondering if you don't need to go over the basics right now, because I think they'll figure that out. But some things about so you put down different hashtags of either things you're looking for or that you're open to, or what are your hard limits, things like that. How does that affect the results you see, or do you have to search intentionally for those? Just kind of can you give me kind of the tips of how do you actually use the platform the best?
As you come into the app, you decide whether you want to create a solo profile or a partnered profile or both. At the moment, partner profiles are limited to 2 individuals, but we're very much committed to expanding that as resources are available. A current design limitation. And as you create your profile, it's got some elements of a traditional dating app where you're adding photographs and some sort of demographic information, if you will, all of which is optional, and you control at a very high level what's seen and not seen. But really through the research, and numerous books and discussions that Amanda had and others on the team had with people around the right ways to set up an expression of sort of wants, needs, and desires, if you will. We take you through an interview process asking you to think about your preferences, things that you're open to, and there's a hashtag list that you can pick from. That list has been growing, and that's a very imperfect system, and one that needs editing, but it's there, and it does serve to help people think about what they're open to, what they're interested in. And in fact, all of those lists, you can sort of custom name them. Those are just suggestions.
And one thing to note and point out, our sign-up process does take a little bit longer because we don't use Facebook
Right.
So, normally Facebook would kind of go ahead and pre-populate some of those things in there for you. So it does take...
Yeah, all the apps that we've talked about.
It's worth the extra time not to share any data with Facebook, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then at that point, your profile is available in the community, and based on a set of boundaries that you'll enter around what sorts of profiles you're interested in seeing and being seen by, and distance and some age parameters. And you can further filter those by the hashtags that we just talked about, if you want.
Searching by them.
Yes. Yeah. So in fact, if you were, let's say you were looking at a grid of people in the New York metro area, and you wanted to look at people who specifically had hashtag BDSM or hashtag polyamory or hashtag rope, you apply that filter, and now you're looking at folks with that hashtag. And one of the things actually we do when you do a search is we don't only show you people that you've matched with, that you've liked, we also show you folks that you've passed on, because when you're doing a search on a hashtag, we think it's worth sort of seeing what you might have missed.
See, that's interesting.
More of a visual
pass. You kind of get a second chance on those.
Yes, always.
If you're searching specifically for something that they've put. That's interesting. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So, we're about coming up on time here. And what I want to ask is, you're making a product for a community that is extremely diverse in variety, as in, everyone from people who are asexual and polyamorous versus maybe I'm just monogamish and kinky, or I'm only BDSM and aromantic, and as well as like the whole palette of like gender identities and sexualities and things like that. So you're making a product for a community that's both really diverse and I think also extremely picky at the same time. Are you pulling your hair out all the time? Because I feel like I would be, I feel like even for us with our show or with the things that we write or produce, that it is just this inherent challenge of like a community that spans a lot of different identities. And also they have, I think, very high standards for what it is that they want and expect. And we have built upon that. We have, a set of community guidelines that everybody has to agree to before coming into the app. And then we hold people accountable to those things. We have a moderation policy that has been built with the help of Jacqueline Friedman, who is great. She just had a book that came out. But really making sure that we have like this human touch to our moderation. And we actually, to this point, have had no problems, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really great question. What I've seen at Pride Parade after Pride Parade, or various expos and events that we've gone to, is people come up to Amanda and hug her. And thank her for the ability to express themselves. And, earlier we were talking about why we did this and why we've been doing this. And actually, meeting on that app for both of us was a process of sort of self-exploration and discovery that changed our lives. I mean, it dramatically changed our lives. And we felt like and feel like that's what this technology can do for people and bringing them together. And so, we used to talk about kind of jokingly, like if you grew up and you were always kind of interested in clown tipping, this fictional thing where sleeping clowns get tipped over in the night.
Right.
We call it
like cat tipping, but for clowns. Okay, got it.
And you had all the shame of growing up being into clown tipping, and one day you go out there and you meet another person and you really don't care how they identify. They're into clown tipping. You all of a sudden just have this magical moment. And that's one of the great things that the internet has been able to do for us, and that these apps, we think, if done, and we're not suggesting we're doing it right, we have one take on it, and we're all over the place clearly, and we're trying to get too much done with too little time and resource. But if they would go a little deeper, they could be so much more powerful than this crud that's out there, and connecting clown tippers, and that's cool.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think that's a really wonderful note to end on for now. So if people want to know more about your app, and also if they want to sign this petition, where should our listeners go?
Well, they could come to our website, which is #open.com, and we have links on there to the petition.
As well as the app in the Apple App Store and on Google Play. There are about 45,000 users right now worldwide mostly here in the U.S. And on our site, there's a whole lot of sort of statistical breakdown information about those users, which we're really proud of the diversity, which has come from our team, from wonderful community ambassadors that we've worked with, and from great feedback that we got from our initial 5,000 beta users as well.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you so much, David and Amanda, for joining us today. We are actually going to stay on with David and Amanda to talk a little bit more deeply in our bonus episode for our Patreon subscribers. We're going to be talking a little bit more about some of the technical stuff, some security stuff, some of the inner tinkerings of the app itself, as well as maybe talking about online dating ethics in general. So we would love to hear from all of you listening. Have you used #Open before as an app? What was your experience? How have your experiences been on other dating apps? We'd love to hear from you. The best place to share your thoughts with other listeners is on this episode's discussion thread in our private Facebook group or Discord chat. You can get access to these groups and you can join our exclusive community by going to patreon.com/multiamory. In addition, you can share with us publicly on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can email us at info@multiamory.com. You can leave us a voicemail at 678-MULTI-05, or you can leave us a voice message on Facebook. Multiamory is created and produced by Jace Lindgren, Emily Matlack, and me, Dedeker Winston. Our episodes are edited by Mauricio Balvanera. Our social media wizard is Will McMillan. Our production assistants are Rachel Shennework and Carson Collins. Our theme song is Forms I Know I Did by Josh and Anand from the Fractal Cave EP. The full transcript is available on this episode's page on multiamory.com.